Talk about next, this cycle, which I want you to really commit to memory. Write this down in your workbooks. It is not there. This is the belief, behavior, results cycle. What this shows you and illustrates very clearly is a relationship between the way you think, your actions, and then the results you get. Another version of this is the see-do-get model. Same exact thing. Stephen Covey calls it something different. This is a version that shows us that behaviors, what we do, will lead to certain results. Would you all agree with that?
Yep.
The choices we make will lead us inevitably to whatever that outcome will be based on those behaviors. But one thing this shows that nobody usually catches at the first level is that not only is it a self-fulfilling cycle, but most importantly is that behaviors are preceded by beliefs. Meaning what I believe will influence the behaviors I take. Do you all see that? If I believe I will always be in debt, and that's my belief, and that everyone has debt, what will I do? How will I behave?
Borrow some money.
Do what? You'll keep accumulating debt. What else? You'll never try to pay off debt, right? You'll be okay with having debt. If I believe that my health is the number one thing, what will I do? How will I behave? Work out. What else? Eat healthy. I have a reason, I have a belief, I have a why. What if my belief is that relationships are the most important thing to me? What will I do?
Invest
What's that?
in.
Invest in relationships. Becky, did you say something? Prioritize them. Anything else? Make them number one. Figure out what specifically those relationships are supposed to look like in my mind, from my vision, to make sure that my beliefs are in alignment with those behaviors. Now, here's the interesting thing. When I have the belief that relationships are number one, I behave in a way that shows that belief is true for me. My thought pattern, my beliefs are in alignment. That goes to now foster and help those relationships flourish, which then reinforce my beliefs. This is important. Do you see how this works? Now here's the trick. Some beliefs are positive, some are neutral, and some are negative. Meaning we can be hurt just as easily as we can be helped by our beliefs. This is where it's important for us to analyze what we think about, the meta thinking we spoke about yesterday, and realizing that what we think about and discovering our beliefs for ourselves is something that doesn't normally come as a default setting for us. Many of these, where do you think they come from? Childhood. Where else? And that's actually a huge one. Society, culture, our surroundings, our environment, the people around us. It could be like a lot of us have got. This is not to get into psychology here, but a lot of our beliefs were shaped from a very young age from our parents, and then from our siblings and our friends after that. We go through a social evolution that most of our influences in life start off in the family and they gradually evolve into society. And this is oftentimes our classmates when we're young too as well. So many times though, we haven't taken the time necessary to discover for ourselves what our beliefs are. Now, synonymous with beliefs is values. This is another version of this. What do we value? What do we find important? So it's not only what we believe to be true or false, but also what we believe to be important versus not important, or good or bad. All of these are different versions of beliefs. So it's important for us to change this part of that if we are to be successful in creating our vision.
Hold on, Bojo, before you go back.
Yeah.
I love this slide, and here's the thing. Most people, the way it works, that to get the results, they work on their behaviors, right? You guys following me? Mm-hmm. I need to go to the gym, and I need to do this, I need to, eat this kind of food, or whatever the case may be, right? And it doesn't work, does it? Because before you know it, you track back to what it was before a lot of times, right? What we're talking about here is in order for this to work, this has to work. This is the root of this. You guys following me?
Yes.
Most people don't look at the beliefs and don't work on the beliefs to get to change the behavior. Once you change your belief, you're going to be able to change your behavior. Follow me? Mm-hmm. If you think that, for instance, money is evil, right? Mm-hmm. If this is your belief system that you were brought up, or maybe you saw when your parents were growing up. Like for me, for instance, when I was growing up, and I'll share later in my story, money was bad because of the results that I was providing. My parents were constantly fighting. You know, my dad was constantly, fighting, he was alcoholic and all that kind of stuff. Am I going to be able to earn money if money is bad? So whatever I'll be doing here will be contradicting with this. You're following me? And if this contradicts, sooner or later I'm going to go back to that belief. So what we're going to be doing today is basically looking at your belief system, some of the beliefs, the limiting beliefs that you have, or what other people can call it like blind spots, because those things are always there with you. You just don't see it until you finally like, oh God, that's what I actually believe. That's what I've been saying, in my head. I say that kind of stuff in my head. And then we can reframe it to actually change the behavior. Yeah, Jackie.
Another pervasive one is I don't deserve it.
Right.
I don't deserve it.
Yeah.
I don't deserve it, right. So if you don't deserve it, are you actually going to be able to achieve the result?
Yeah. Yeah, no. I'm gonna self-sabotage or
Yeah.
whatever,
So, and think about this. Remember yesterday I said when, several years ago, I was struggling with the questions I asked myself, like, what's wrong with me? Now, when I ask that question, my brain says something's wrong with you, which is a belief,
Yeah.
right? So we have these. What have you guys heard from limiting beliefs that you've heard around the room just in the little bit we've been together? Anybody can identify some? Like, how about I have to do that? Or I have to do this? Could that be a limiting belief? Right. So if we get our beliefs primarily through conditioning, how do we change those usually? Like self-affirmations, yep, that's a good one. What else? How about tragedy? So usually things are changed in our lives and our beliefs change when something significant happens to us. And it changes our perspective, right? Some of you guys have had that experience. So that's another way beliefs change. When you have a heart attack, all of a sudden your behaviors change because your belief is, I'm going to die if I don't do this. Is that a good enough reason to change behavior? Right, you have the why. The belief gives you the why.
So you're not suggesting finding tragedy, are you?
No.
No, but
And hopefully you don't ever have to go through that, but oftentimes that's what it takes. People will change from inspiration or desperation. Hopefully it's inspiration.
Well, and the tragedy could also be your spouse leaving you.
Yes.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a death. It doesn't have to be something that, like that. But it could be, a friend stops talking to you.
Yeah.
It could also be on that level of
realization.
realization.
I told you my story where my wife left me, right? My ex-wife, not the one now. Like, hope she, she's still there. When I get back from here, I hope she's still there. But my first wife left me. Did that change my beliefs about what it means to be a husband and what I have to do to be successful in a marriage? Yes or no? Yeah, tremendously. Tremendously so. Great.
What he's getting at in those particular situations, what happens is your want becomes a must. So for you guys, in order to achieve what you're putting down on your vision today, that has to become a must. Because when it becomes a must, then you make things happen, right? There are certain things in your life that are a must, right? You must take care of your mom or your kids, right? That's a must. And you do it every single day, right? You must eat food, because if you don't eat food, what happens if you don't eat food? Right. Or you must drink water. So whatever you're going after has to become the must. And when that happens, then all the other gnats or the distractions or whatever are not going to be as powerful to take you out of the game. You guys follow me?
And so everyone's with us in this? So what is the point of changing our beliefs? We change our behaviors, we change our results, so what? Here's the point. The goal of all of this, and remember, change is hard, we know it takes time, we know it takes energy, we have inertia to overcome, momentum to build. It's to have a life. We are here for such a short period of time. You guys saw this, we talked about it, we've seen videos. We have a short period of time. Let's enjoy every moment of it, because the truth is, life is supposed to be fun. We talked yesterday about the rules of the game of life, when we use the example of the actual game of life, right? yet he gave examples of what if the winner of the game of life was what? Give me some examples that you guys learned, that you heard.
Someone who could take 4 hours of leisure every day.
Somebody could take 4 hours of leisure a day. Yep. What else? What are some other rules of the game that you'd like to see?
I got a question. How many people on the 30 days left to live put number 1, you'd figure out how not to die?
Yeah, not to die. That's okay. That's all right. What you just did to me there, Tom, is basically say, hey, if I have three wishes, can I wish for another wish?
Well, but I mean, wouldn't you try and
Changing the rules?
change the rules?
It's
That's
possible, right?
you know.
When I was told I'd never walk again, I refused to accept that diagnosis, and I did whatever I could to make sure that it never became a reality. Yeah, that's great. That's breaking the rules, changing the rules. Someone else. How would you define success? Like, so if the rules of the game of life, board games say the winner is the person who retires and makes the most money, we talked about what if the rules were redefined for something that says I was the best spouse or parent or sibling, or I define success as giving the most glory to God, or I define success as giving the most or helping the most people I can. So all these are different paradigms, different beliefs for what you see as being success for you in terms of your vision. Does everyone get that? Big distinction. I want to make sure that everybody is clear on that. And again, and by the way, can you lose when you make the rules? If you make the rules, could you lose?
Hopefully not.
You would just change them if you started losing. So I have a niece named Zoe. She's 4 years old now, and I was playing Candyland with her. You guys remember Candyland?
Yeah.
So I'm the mean uncle, by the way. So I will beat her and be okay with it. Well, I'm ahead of Zoe, and I'm like 3 squares from winning the game, and I roll a dice, and I was gonna win. And I start moving, she knocks my piece off the board, and she says, if you roll a 6 and you're on green, you automatically lose. I was like, what? That is she changed the rules on me. And now I couldn't argue with her, right? Like, so she won the game. She changed the rules, and I'm like, all right, that's how it goes, I guess. I'm not sure if I'm enabling her to like do a good thing here or a bad thing, but anyways, so that's what it's like. That's changing the rules, makes sure that we don't lose the game because we define the rules.
Now, on the other hand, what's going to happen if you don't make the rules?
Say it again.
Someone else will make the rules
For you.
for you, yeah.
Right.
And that happens every single day.
Absolutely. Again, why? Make the game of life fun. Design the game your way. We are supposed to have fun, experience fulfillment, joy, peace. Life is too short not to do otherwise. So this is why we're doing this. None of us should have to drudge through life and with our head down and just plowing through day-to-day surviving. We mentioned earlier that if you're not waking up 8 out of 10 days, and we all have a couple days we don't want to get out of bed, we're kind of, everything creaks and hurts. But if you're not waking up 8 out of 10 days a week, that's not even
7
a week.
days a week.
That's not even a week. You guys confuse me there. If we're not waking up 8 out of 10 times, excited about our day, we're living somebody else's vision. And we let somebody else create the rules. We gotta change rules. So, here's Steve Kavanaugh. Steve is a good friend. He's also a student in Life and Air. Steve, we're gonna talk about Steve as it relates to a vision. All right. Steve had in his vision. He's from. He lived in Waldorf, Maryland. Right. And he had Southern Maryland. He had decided for years that he wanted to escape those winters because they're pretty harsh up there. You South Carolinians probably can't relate to that, but it's cold. It's very cold. Being from New England, I can relate to this. So he had on his vision for years that he wanted to get out of the winters, except he didn't have any clarity on it. He didn't know exactly how he was doing it. Now the problem was, Steve had a very successful real estate business in Maryland that he was running. He also had a very successful RIA. He ran a RIA up there. He also had a coaching program, all of which were localized to Maryland, Waldorf, Maryland, focused around one central locality. So, in an effort to get him to experience this and see what he could do on a small scale, we got him to move down only for a month down to West Palm Beach, Florida, and to see if he could run his business. So he did it. Wouldn't you know, that very first trip, he closed the most profitable deal of his entire career while working remotely. Now, do you think that that small glimmer of hope, that one small change in his perception of his beliefs, right, of what was possible, do you think that changed something for him? Do you think it maybe made him realize this may not be as impossible as I thought? And by the way, many things that people put on their visions are impossible. We hear this all the time. It's become like an inside joke where like, but you can't do that, that's impossible. But people yet still do it. So Steve decided to put the things in place, start taking steps using his vision as a reference point to take those action steps. We're going to talk about action steps later today and tomorrow to create this reality for him. And in fact, it's been probably about 9 or 10 months now that he is living full-time in Florida, in West Palm Beach. He flies up to Maryland once a month for a couple days, and I'll tell you, he's already to the point where he's like, you know what? I don't really think I want to keep going back to Maryland. So now what he needs to do now is start taking the next steps to make that a fully automated reality. He has an assistant in place. He has somebody else helping out with the RIA. He has assistant coaches doing the coaching program, and he's running it remotely. And this is Steve now. And he actually started palling up with Frank McKinney, which I don't know if you guys know Frank McKinney. He's been around for quite a while. He does a lot of luxury stuff, high-end stuff. He has a heart for service as well, and he's built quite a bit in Haiti. He contributed to that country quite a bit as well. So, but here, this is Steve's vision. This was his vision that at one point was impossible, that wasn't something that he even ever saw coming to fruition, that now is real and is in front of him. And all of us have this potential within us. This is an important qualification to make sure I don't miscommunicate anything that you're hearing from here, which is Lifeonaires do not lower the bar. We are not suggesting retiring somewhere on a beach with a margarita and rotting away as the tides come in and out for the rest of your life. That will be fun for some period of time. For some of you, it may be a couple weeks, a couple months, maybe even a couple years. But it will eventually lead to a stage where you're not going to be happy anymore. You need some fulfillment. You need some meaning. You need some purpose. We're meant to work. We are meant to produce. This is something that becomes optional, though. When you get to versus have to, it's a completely different paradigm. We had two students, two Lifeonairs alumni, Tim and Josie. And for the longest time, they wanted to retire to the beach. And Tim was a flipper, Josie was a banker, and they did that for, I believe, about 2 months until Tim was going absolutely insane. And he became like actually kind of irritable because he had lost such a purpose for himself and a meaning for his life and the significance and the identity that went along with it. I mean, he was already a great husband and he had that part of his life good, but now this other part of his life he didn't realize was missing. So now he catches up on that. They found that happy balance now, but like we talked earlier, getting closer to that vision, he wasn't able to know that. Like they thought they would be happy. They thought they wanted to retire at the beach. But he realized that once he got closer to it, he got more clarity and it made him recognize that in fact wasn't exactly what he thought it was. So that's another thing to recognize. Here is a quote from Jim Rohn. If you don't design your own life plan, chances are you'll fall into somebody else's plan. And guess what they have planned for you? Not much. We just talked about this, right? A failure to plan means accepting the world's plan for you. And thus far, at some point in our lives, we've been on that plan. And it's okay. That's fine. There's no blame here. It's just a recognition that, like, maybe this isn't what I want. Maybe my path is over here. Maybe I have to get off this highway and off this off-ramp here and make some changes. This is Jen and Andy Kuba.